I wish it wasn't winter still, but it is. That's probably the only negative though from coming here. Obviously, seeing a new culture is always cool. I think back in the day, because I've traveled a lot throughout my entire life, but I regret not seeing very much while I'm actually visiting. I'm usually just stuck in the hotel. So it's nice to be able to get out a little bit, even though it is ridiculously cold. And as you know, I'm from the desert, so none of my body parts can handle this. Like, it literally is painful to be outside. But having said that, it's a lot of fun. Last time, of course, first time casting Artifact, and looking forward to do some more. It's too early for that, man. It's the beginning of the tournament, you know. And I already gave them my feedback because the first time, like I told them, the actual tournament itself was super smooth. The production was amazing. Everything was as good as I've ever experienced, and I've been to a lot of tournaments. The only problem was the couple days before we started casting, we had to walk outside for several hours. Basically got frostbite on my feet, you know, things of that nature. And then the media day was like manual labor. But this time around, they've fixed all of that. They nipped it in the bud. So I'm very happy and looking forward to another great production. Right. Really Hoej. Hoej, my boy. Well, it's definitely a mix. It's going to be an interesting integration because you have, as you talked about, the tier 1 players, as we know, the hypes of the world, the Hoejs, and then you have the people I've never heard of, which is exciting to see new blood come up in the scene. And then you have the casters from last time, Swim and Mogwai, participating. So it's definitely an interesting mix, and I'm looking forward to see who shits the bed, if it's Swim. Oh, of course. I'm rooting for them, as long as they don't bring mono blue, which I think Swim, I have to look at the decks again, but I think Swim might have brought one. So I will not be rooting for him during those games, but other than that, obviously, they're great guys. Yeah, I don't know, mono, I guess I'm kind of like a fan of the underdog, and that is not just for individuals, but for decks, I guess, in this case. Mono blue is just, for the past month, run rampant, so I don't want to see it anymore. You know, it's just pretty much as simple as that. Well, it's funny because if the game was released as a quote-unquote beta, we wouldn't be having many complaints, right? It's kind of a mindset. And I think that the community kind of feeds off its negativity kind of on themselves, like they just keep repeating over and over. It's a vicious cycle of sorts. I think Valve is going to do the right thing. I mean, they've talked about it already, and it's not something you can do overnight. But because I talked about this before there was even any negativity around the game, I said this game is going to take maybe another year of continual updates. Like once you get these features that everybody was looking for, obviously the ranking stuff that's kind of already in the game to some respect now, but they need to polish that up a bit. Then you have an expansion, which I think is like a re-release of the game in some ways. You have the huge tournament that they're going to be holding. You have, you know, all these things coming together. Eventually mobile, maybe free to play at some point. I have no idea if that's actually going to happen, but if all that stuff happens in this next year, then I'm not super worried about the future of Artifact. I think it's got a very bright future. I mean, I got access because of that relationship, I suppose. But no, I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that can, and I kind of told them this early on, because I've never been really into card games that much. If I like a game, I'll play it. If I don't, I won't. It's as simple as that. I have a hard time, because if you look at my track record, I've tried to start like YouTube channels in the past for games that I thought, this could be something, like Heroes of the Storm, or I think we tried to do Hearthstone a little bit back in the day as well. If I do that for more than like 2 weeks, I'm like, all right, I can't do this anymore. I don't like this game. But Artifact, even though the viewership might not be amazing right now, I still personally enjoy the game. So that's, especially at this stage of my career, that's the most important thing for me, is I enjoy what I'm doing. I have not. I didn't know what to expect. It's hilarious. I mean, this feels like the circus. Of course, I've never been to one, like you said, but I'm a little disappointed there's no elephant, like actual elephant in the room, but other than that, they've done an amazing job at setting the theme. I'm glad there's no clowns, although I'm not the type of guy that's super afraid of clowns, but I know some people are very turned off by the idea. But they've done a pretty amazing job, as usual, with the theme. I'm a pretty big loser. I almost never leave my house, as you can see from my pale complexion. I mean, typically when people are this pale, they live in, you know, countries or states that have very cold weather. I live in the hottest state in the entire United States. You can get a tan in like 2 days. I just can't leave the house. But if I do leave the house, then I like to watch movies, obviously, like any normal human being. I'm a huge basketball fan, so I typically don't go to the games that much anymore because my team really sucks balls right now. The Phoenix Suns, of course. But they do have a bright future, and I've been watching them pretty religiously on the TV, at least. Oh, man. It wasn't like this overnight thing. I actually haven't talked about my past in a long time. It was back in Heroes of Newerth was probably the biggest transition. I had gotten my bachelor's degree at Arizona State, which was useless, for me at least. And then I started to do a master's program. I don't know, you know, sometimes you just go through life and you have to go through the motions. To some respect, you have to do what other people expect you to do. Like, oh, I should be getting a master's because that's kind of what a bachelor's used to be like 30 years ago. It's important. But I hated school. I always hated school. I don't know how I brainwashed myself into thinking that was a good idea. So halfway through my first semester, I had been into this game called Heroes of Newerth. This is after playing like Dota for 4.5 years, the original Dota. And I was watching some of the casting. I'm like, I think this would be fun to do. This would be a lot of fun, like just as a hobby. Like I was never even thinking it would be a job at some point or anything like that. So I just started doing it for fun, dropped out of school because I started getting some jobs here and there, not much pay, and just kind of grew from there. And then when Dota 2 came out, I jumped ship immediately because that was one of my favorite games of all time. And I knew that if it just got a new engine, and especially with Ice Frog on board, that was probably the most exciting thing career-wise for me as far as switching games. And just went full throttle and was lucky enough to be a part of a successful YouTube channel and just went from there. So it wasn't really, like I said, this overnight thing. It just gradually happened over time. And now that I look back, it's like, I have no idea how I ended up here, but here we are. Oh God. Well, first year I did computer science and I was actually okay at it. Like not great, but good enough that I could probably get a degree, especially at that university, which sets the bar quite low. But I just didn't enjoy it. I really, really disliked it. In fact, there was a class called digital design where it's like circuitry. You have to do board circuits and stuff, like binary. The worst class I've ever had to take in my entire life. I literally dropped the entire program because of that class. And then I just took business. So business and communications is my degree, which, you know, in theory, it's like this degree that people go for, especially in that university when you just have no idea what you want to do in life. You just get the most general thing possible. And, you know, in theory, it's helped me, but I don't think it has. I don't know. It's hard to look back and, you know, exactly know what brought you to where you are today in that respect, so. That is a good question. I actually never thought about this. So for Dota, I preferred playing it. It really depended for Dota. Because Dota, it depends on who I'm casting with. So my all-time favorite co-caster, which was maybe as known as kind of a caster of sorts for Dota, was Cinderin, who just makes everybody amazing. That is what I would say I prefer casting to playing. But normally I'd say playing is a little bit more fun. For Artifact, I just haven't cast enough, honestly. Like this is only my second tournament I've cast. I haven't done any remote casting whatsoever. I find the casting to be more educational for sure. Like I'll play and I'll just grind over and over, and yeah, it can get tiresome over time, especially with a game like Artifact that really makes you think a lot. So for now, actually, I think casting is a little bit more fun just because I do learn a lot more. Like the last time the first WePlay tournament, afterwards, I was so ready to play after the tournament was over because I had learned so much about the game, especially Constructed, which is, you know, a realm that we played draft for months before that, so I didn't have much experience with the Constructed at that point. So I don't know, you could go either way depending on the day, honestly.
We're glad to see you play again. Hopefully we'll see you in the third tournament.
If you'll have me. Is it still winter at that time?
No,
April.
No, it's going to be a little bit warmer.
A little bit warmer.
Spring, but I believe there's not going to be snow.
Crossing my fingers.